We're live, baby. What's good,
Yep.
Profo?
Yo, what's up? Shadow Rock and PROFOWON of the Florida Gangs and Knucklehead Tribe. And this is
Greetings to the world. This is Jay Soul. What's good, Profo?
man,
Episode
you're
1, GEARHEADZ, baby.
yeah. GEARHEADZ. The show is about hacking, movement, and culture. And this is our first episode on the GEARHEADZ channel. So please like and subscribe to get more content where we break down all this. We deconstruct culture. We deconstruct music. We deconstruct breaking. And we deconstruct movement. And why we call it GEARHEADZ is because that's what we're doing. We're reverse engineering everything for you guys, the audience and consumer, to understand this culture of breaking and beyond. So, how's your week been going, Jay?
It's been going good. As you know, I run BTR BREAKIN, and I am updating my personal system with that. That looks like a lot of video shooting for my online courseware. That's taken up a lot of my week. But other than that, planning for this. This is a project that we've been talking about for a little bit. The name came together. The time is right. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
working the logistical things with this new platform, getting up. But yep.
Yeah. That's the thing about GEARHEADZ. Like I said, so I've been working with Jay for a little bit less than a year, and we always have these conversations, these deep conversations about movement and culture. And you know, some of these conversations, you said we need to put it on podcast because it's just like they were so deep. And it's like, and I was talking like the demographic are guys like, basically who like to like people that work on cars, mechanics, people like to break down how movement works. People like to break down music. People like to break down all these things. It's basically like, like these are all gearheads. And once I said that, Jay was like, that's it.
That's it.
We got to do that. We got to do that. You know what I mean? So, today's episode, let me tell you, man. Let me tell you. So,
let them know.
The whole thing is, since this is the first episode, we got to start from the beginning. Do you know what I mean? Like, we have to start from the beginning. And, like a lot of people okay, this is my, like, old man rant stuff, right? Basically, everyone's like, yeah, I'm old school. I watch B Street. I watched Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo. Breaking started in '83, right? I'm like, kill me now. I'm like, kill me now. And it's like, no. Like, they're like, yeah, old school, Rocksteady, old school, New York City Breakers. I was like, no, man. There was people before that. Like, and if you love the craft, you want to study it. If you're an artist, you study whatever, like Van Gogh, you study like Da Vinci. Like, you want to study the range so that you know where you're at and how you create. Because, like, you're going to be like, oh, I created this, but you didn't create it. They were doing it centuries before, maybe, years before, decades before. You don't know that. So it's good to do your research. So when you do create, you might have a different approach or a reapproach. So that was the whole thing. It's like, nah, man, like, let's go back. So what we're going to start out with is why we're calling the break. We're going to actually go to jazz. And that's why we have a musician on. And before we go to that, we're going to go with kind of the main influences of dancers in the 60s, such as James Brown or Sam and Dave. We're going to watch a clip of the most famous dancers that we know, the Nicholas Brothers. And if you could pull that clip up, Jay.
Yes, sir.
Well, we'll just give it a watch. And then I believe this is with Cab Calloway. There you go.
Dude, the mobility in the hips, just for those jazz splits and pressing up.
Yeah.
Man. That's the rip ordinary humans, groin, adductors, everything, man.
Just the mobility, right? Just the timing, man.
ease of movement, man.
Oh my God, this is the best part.
The athletics of this stuff. Look at. You can see how they're using their feet, though. I mean,
Right.
yeah, like the adduction, but how they're using their feet to kind of slide into it and dampen it. Not easy by any means, but
Right. There you go, the finish.
oh, dude.
Yo, gotta give it, gotta give it his props, bro. Nicholas Brothers. So starting with Nicholas Brothers, now we're gonna get into, like, you know, if we're going through the timeline, right? We're going from Nicholas Brothers, and this is like, you know, the next thing to come from that era, like, you know, pre Nicholas Brothers was jazz, and then what you got, big band. Now we're gonna get into like that transition from jazz to soul. So our first guest from the Tip Network, we got my man Grover, producer of hip hop, jazz musician, folk musician, jazz enthusiast. Give him a hand, Grover from Tip Network. How you doing, Grover?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today? Is my sound okay? You guys got me on that?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Man, I haven't took time to watch the Nicholas Brothers for quite some time, man. Quite some time. It's something that I used to do is I used to just enjoy the dance portion of it, and like I really look at tap as kind of like tap dancing. A lot of the swing dancing is kind of like the as juxtaposes to break dancing as an elemental part.
Oh yeah.
Time. And like, I mean, I know a lot of folks they want to talk down on it, but like coming up, if you couldn't dance, you weren't going to be able to talk to anybody. You weren't going to be able to do it. And that was like the same for my dad, same for my granddad, you know. So when I look at that, when I look at I mean, you know, Nicholas Brothers, and you go Sammy Davis Jr., you go Gregory Hines,
yes,
and then you're just like, wow, Gregory Hines, and then inserted right after Sammy Davis Jr. You have a different branch going out to James Brown. For James Brown, you got Prince and Michael Jackson. People don't understand how great of a dancer Prince actually was. And then from Michael Jackson, you have a direct line to Usher. From Usher, you have a direct line to Chris Brown. Yep. And from Chris Brown, you have a direct line to what everyone's doing right now. As far as dance goes, and we're not even talking about the more athletic dancing or break dancing or like dancing on the breaks. What we're talking about is just how people dance with each other.
Before we move on in the timeline, I gotta interject on this one. What about the Donald O'Connors, the Fred Astaire, the Gene Kellys, and all that? Place with a lot of this.
But Fred Astaire would actually be at the same time. I mean, I definitely skipped them, but the Fred Astaire juxtaposed that it's a different type of movement, a different type of jazz. And a different type of jazz that they were dancing to. So I guess the best I could really do to explain my ideas on this is just really take it back to like Congo Square and where jazz was rumored to be invented. Now because Jelly Roll Morton said that if you don't have the swing behind it, if you don't have that Spanish swing behind it, it's not jazz, right? But
can you explain that real quick? What do you mean by swing? Is it
it's what you would hear on a hi-hat that
it's a little flick, like a swing.
And even rhythm. Hold on, I had a problem with my wire here. I apologize. The uneven rhythm of the hi-hat. Can you guys hear me still?
Yep. Oh yeah.
I had a whole bunch of ugly feedback for some reason, but just the uneven rhythm on a hi-hat. So like most hi-hats, you have a standard 4/4 beat. You just have to 1, 2, 3, 4, pop, 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 pop. But jazz, you'd have pop, 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 pop. So you'd actually have a pulse in it or just a little on an upbeat in it. It made it a little different. So Jelly Roll Morton said that it wasn't jazz if it didn't have to have that. And I think that was him being a little elitist, saying that this isn't jazz or this isn't jazz, in my opinion. But Congo Square was a place where slaves actually in the South in Louisiana, they could actually play music and be African. They could speak their language, right? Because you have a bunch of dialects. So African dialect still survived there, and their drumming still survived there. And what's the basic foundation of all music is the drums. And you even have James Brown saying that the basic foundation to the music that you break to, the basic foundation of the break, if the drummer ain't funky, then it don't make a difference. I mean, it doesn't make a difference. So you take that, and I would juxtapose that, and I would say that looking at why did that happen? Okay, it was freedom, and the same freedom that those young cats at the time felt in the Bronx to dance, to be themselves, to express themselves, to speak their language, which means they could talk bad about people who couldn't understand. It's the same way where, you know, the language is different. I mean, I remember the biggest thing that my dad talked to me about hip hop, and he couldn't stand is the way we talked. He did not like the way we talked. It was fresh and it was funky and word. And he's like, "What the hell is word? What are you saying?" All of those things drive him crazy. And the way we dressed. I mean, shout out to Adidas with the 3 stripes. I put it on tonight, just for the, you know, but you know, but like, you know, you have to understand my dad's era, you know, like, hey, this is gym. Were you in the gym? What are you doing? Right. He didn't understand all that. Well, that was the same thing. It was just a freedom, and the freedom manifests itself. Now there's funny, and this is the next juxtaposition I want to make, is that people don't understand that Louis Armstrong, at essence, played by ear. He played by ear. And so, and playing by ear means that you're not reading music. So you have improvisation. So reading music is wonderful. I can read music, and it does something for you. It allows you to communicate exactly how you want to communicate. But like all things that's structured, it's limiting, right? So if I'm reading a script and I feel like I can only do a certain thing with my voice inflection, I can put a pause here and there. But the great thing about improvisation is that you have a perimeter to improvise within, but you can play whatever you want. But if it doesn't work, people are going to talk bad about you. And so I could really say that, like, that freedom and within the rules. And then, like, I remember talking to a cat who was breaking, and man, I wanted to break so bad when I was young, but I could just strut. That's all I could do.
Yeah, there you go.
What year? What year was that?
83, 84.
Okay, nice.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like 10 or 11, you know. We were back and forth into the Bay Area from South. And I remember I was talking to this cat down at Fisherman's Wharf, man. And I was like, when you guys practice, you plan all your moves out? And he said, absolutely not. I do what I feel like doing when I do it. And then I remember, you know, when you first take it from the head, you play a solo, you know, and someone says, "Oh, are you really planning this?" Like, and I really felt, that's when I really understood what he said. Because no, I'm doing what I'm doing when I do it within the confines of that constraints of the bar structure. And so there's so many parallels to hip hop, especially early hip hop and to jazz music, and that it always blew my mind that, like, I seen the parallels as a kid. Right, I started playing music in elementary school, right? And I played all the way up until, I mean, I probably stopped playing in my 20s and started just producing music in my late 20s, right? And so I seen that as a kid. I thought it was the exact same thing. I literally thought it was the same language with just spoken with a different accent. Because when I go down south, you know, in Texas, my family speaks a certain way. Then I come up here, my family speaks a little differently. My family from Mississippi speaks a little differently. That's what I thought jazz and hip hop was. It's just the same thing with a different accent on it and different regional flavor on it. But, you know, it is a great difference in them. But just the idea of that improvisational aspect of it. And also, there's the biggest thing that I learned about it was it's hard, especially in the early days, to be crappy and get props. I mean, the proof is in the fudge. Like, so, and this is what I mean. If you play good dance from any era, but particularly hip hop dancing, particularly strutting. I mean, when you see the OG cholos strutting and pop locking, right? And you look at that, even if you don't know what it is, you're like, wait, that's good.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing in jazz, because those people didn't know how to play music, but they were like, no, that's good. That's good. You had to have the skills. And that's why you have KRS-One, who's making music literally almost my entire life now, and still had an album that came out rocking. And you have jazz musicians with that longevity also. I mean, Wynton Marsalis been playing music almost my whole life, it seems like, because you have to be good to do it. And that's the biggest thing is, I think that especially growing up, it was a meritocracy, and it wasn't a lot of nepotism. Nobody cared whose cousin it was. What could you do? You know?
Yeah. So before we bring Cholly up again, let's watch that clip of Chaz Boseman playing James Brown in and talking to Clyde Stubblefield and Maceo Parker. Let's watch that clip real quick. And rest in peace to James Brown. Rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman.
Oh yeah.
It is.
What's this here? Snare, Mr. Brown. A snare what? Drum. Correct. What's this? Guitar. No, it's not. Pee-wee, what's this? Drum, Mr. Brown. Now we getting it. What's Maceo hold? Drum, Mr. Brown. Fellas, what's them shiny things y'all holding over there? Drums. Now we all got our drums. Now when you're playing the drum, it don't matter what key you in, what bar you in, what planet you on. Mr. Brown, Clyde will be in a different time than the rest of the family. That work easy. How you get records you got, son? Huh? Does it sound good? Yeah. Does it feel good? Yeah. God made your ears. You didn't make them. You gonna argue with God's ears? If it sounds good and it feel good, then it's musical. So play it like I say play it. From the top. 1, 2, 1, 2, hit it!
All right. That's it. Yeah, we just wanted to capture that moment, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And introducing to the panel, if he's coming in, Struggle Streaming at its finest. Let's get a take from Grover first before we get to Cholly.
Well, I mean, that's probably the truest thing, and especially it's the truest thing that you could say, because I could take a quote from John Coltrane, where John Coltrane said, I'm not so interested that people even understand what I'm doing. I'm interested that they feel what I'm doing. I'm interested that they feel me, because no one can understand what you go through to learn how to play music, to learn how to produce music, to learn how to dance like you dance. I mean, first of all, I can show empathy, which is an amazing human power, and say, man, he must have went through a lot to do it. However, I don't know for sure. But what I do know is how it made me feel when I seen it, how it made me feel when I heard it, and how it makes me feel when other people see it and hear it around me. And that's what James Brown was saying there. And it's universal in jazz and funk and hip hop. I mean, the biggest thing that I could be a snob and say, a lot of this music just don't do it right. A lot of this music, they're playing this wrong or that wrong, or maybe this is wrong, or they should have did this. But the bottom line is, do people feel it? And if people feel it, then that means that I'm in the minority and I could be wrong, not them.
Right. Well said. All right, my man representing the Bronx, we got my man, original Zulu Kingz, Cholly Rock. Cholly, are you there? Cholly, are you coming in clear? He's frozen.
Looking for reception right now. He's working with us.
Oh, is he? Oh, damn. Okay, just to give a brief history, I believe he was a black spade before he was in the time before hip hop. Cholly's been around for the time before hip hop, and was definitely one of the innovators, one of the first few from the Cool Herc era. And I called it, they called it, you're A1. You're an A1 B-boy. And Cholly's one of the A1 B-boys.
Wow.
And man, yeah. He's one of the, with the legendary twins, Sasa, Trixie, Dancy Doug, Clark Kent. These guys are like I said, this is an untold story. It's not really documented. There's not too many people, not even the B-boys covering this. So we're kind of like the very first to kind of like get that interview. So man, it's great. His reception is like, struggle streaming, man. Welcome to the struggle stream, bro.
No, don't worry. It wouldn't be a live stream if it happened like that,
Yeah, man. There he is. There he is. Cholly, I gave you a big old introduction, man.
Can you guys understand me at all or hear me?
Yeah, yes.
You can.
I gave you a big introduction. Yeah.
I can't hear you.
What?
That's horrible. How you guys doing, man?
Good.
I'm so upset. I think it's the weather here.
Okay.
I think it's the weather here. But
can't
I'll
hear
tell
us
you
at
what,
all.
let's try this. If you put the questions in the chat box and you can hear me,
Yep.
I'll answer them. How does that work? You think that'll work?
Yeah.
Can you hear us now?
Let's try it.
Now go in the chat. So, hey, Jay, can you put in the chat? Ask him how did he start dancing, and where you first seen it, like not before breaking. What was he doing?
Wait, so that's 3
Okay.
questions. How do you start dancing?
Yeah.
I think he can hear us, kind of.
Can you hear us?
That's all right.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I don't think.
Okay. So, I started as a b-boy when I was about 14 years old. Me and my crew, my neighborhood in the Bronx, Gun Hill Projects. My homeboy B. Rock, Byron Romero, Seti Ingram, Seti Mo, my man Angelo Pizarro, Lolo Rock, my man Warren Smalls, Little Jamaica. We used to go to Cool Herc parties. You know, Cool Herc, as you know, the father of hip hop. And I know people try to argue that, but that's just the reality. We always like to say if, you could dance in your mama's basement and have a good and everything, but if you were serious about being a b-boy, you went to Cool Herc parties. That was like the Super Bowl, as Clark Kent likes to say. And so we were going to Cool Herc parties. We were going to a spot called the Hevelo and the Executive Playhouse, which are the early venues for the beginnings of hip hop. And so, what came to be known as hip hop. So that's how I started dancing. It was me with a friend of mine named Ben Richards. That's his nickname. His name is actually Kevin, but we call him Ben Richards. And we used to go to these dances and little church parties, and we'd start burning. That's the early precursor to b-boying, the burning era. And so we're going to the parties and dances and burning the girls and everything. And, we thought pretty good. And what happened is we went to Cool Herc parties, and we saw Clark Kent and the twins, who they used to call at the time the nigger twins. They're now known as the legendary twins, Keith and Kevin. And they were hitting the floor and spinning James Brown and all that kind of stuff. And, we were still doing the burning. And for me at least, and for the rest of us too, it was like, okay, we got to go back into the shed. This is a whole other thing, And so that's how we really got into what you see more as the modern b-boy. That was Clark and the twins, James Bond, the amazing Bobo, cats like that. And so that's when I really started getting down in that kind of way. And that's around 1974, 1975. And, prior to me is the cats like Dancing Doug Cologne, Sasa, Trixie, who is considered the first b-boy, but they're in the burning era, But what I like to tell people, everything starts someplace, and anything that's an art form evolves. It's evolutionary, And I tell people all the time, even with the modern b-boy and power moves and everything, you can't have a Lamborghini without a Model T Ford. You know what I mean? Something has to come first. And if you look at a Model T Ford, you're going to go, oh, that's a little odd looking. But all the basics of it are there. It is a car. You know what I'm saying? And that Lamborghini that goes 250 miles an hour will not be possible without that chugging Model T Ford first. So it's the same thing with the b-boy. It's evolutionary. So, so that was my beginnings.
Ask him.
In 74.
Yo, Charlie, can you hear me? You can't hear me still? Yo, ask him what was some of the first moves that he did. Because from the, as he said, it started from the burning. So what was some of the first moves that they did that was on the floor?
I was actually very athletic, which was unusual. As I told you, I was a nerdy kid. I went to, schools for gifted kids, SP, IGC classes, and stuff like that. And usually the stereotype of people who are like nerd, what you would call nerdy, would be more like a Steve Urkel kind of a thing. You know what I mean? But I wasn't me. You know, I was pretty athletic. So I played baseball and basketball. And I was a really good athlete, even being in, you know, the class with gifted kids and everything like that. So I always had some athletic ability. You know what I mean? And I always gravitated toward athletics, you know, and things like that. So yeah, I definitely had that. And that actually definitely came in handy with the dancing and the b-boy. I could always dance. It wasn't just b-boying. I could hustle, you know, freestyle. I could always do all of those kind of things, you know. So the athleticism part of it came in handy. It's not like the athleticism that you see with modern b-boys, and I know we'll talk about that because it's very more, you know, the gymnastic aspect of it. But certainly in terms of body movement and being in tune with my whole body, which is what's essential when you're dancing, no matter what kind of dance you do. You know what I mean? That athleticism definitely helped.
Yo, Jay, let's show them the clip. Let's show them the clip of Cholly Rock from that one clip, what I sent you. So let's watch that real quick. So we're gonna watch Cholly kind of move. This was an interview from 4 or 5 years ago with Michael Wayne TV. We're gonna watch Cholly kind of demonstrate what some of the early movements were.
The first movements I did, well, there you go. You can talk about it there.
There you go. We got Cholly right here.
And what was they doing exactly? Well, I can't do it for you because I'm too old. Right. But they were the cats who would be like up rocking and, you know.
Look at that cross step.
Then, you know, they drop down and it starts spinning, and I can't do all of that for you. If I wish I could, I'm a little old. Right. But everyone's spinning around and might do a freeze and poses and all those different kinds of things. But they're the ones who first started dropping to the floor. Before that, pretty much breaking or burning, like I told you, was more, you know, it was upright. It wasn't nobody on the floor. Is there a relationship between burning and spade dance? I would say yes. Yeah? I would say yes. I would say spade dance was first, though, right? Because they told me they were doing that I would in say the 60s, the beginning of the spade. Late 60s, early 70s, yeah. Right. I would definitely say that's the case.
All right.
You know, so.
You still going pro or?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I just want to show that much. Yeah. We got it ready for you, Cholly.
All right.
So go ahead.
I can't hear what I'm saying there. I remember that interview took place in Bronxdale, which is the home and the origin of the Black Spade, as you know, at Disco King Mario. So there are several interviews that take place over there. And in relation to my first moves, you know, the original moves of b-boying is you starting with what today would be called up rocking. And it kind of gets you into the rhythm of whatever the particular song is. So let's say, for example, I told you about one of my favorites, Listen to Me by Baby Huey. You know? So when I'm starting, it's a slow beat, like da-dun, da-dun, da-dun. And so, you know, when I'm dancing, I'm like rocking and dancing. And as it comes to the drum part with Baby Huey, with that, so I would start, you know, something like that. And then my up rock picks up, you know, because it's starting to go into it. And, you know, one of the things that is always important, and this is what I say about the more modern b-boys, it's more heavy into gymnastics, but it's a dance. And I don't care what kind of dance you do, the Watusi, the Frug, ballet, boogaloo, b-boying, you have to be in beat with the music.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's my primary thing. So, of course, with Baby Huey, the beat starts slow, and then when he gets into the break, listen to me, da, dum, dum, bump, da, da. So now I'm starting to hit the floor, you know, when that break beat comes. But the first movements were up rocking style movements, and then going down to the ground and doing spins and freezes. And the early b-boys, we incorporated a lot of pantomime and comedy into our dances, into our routine. You know what I mean? And what I always give credit to the modern b-boys of the Carnation, which are my rock steady and moving onward, they codified the dance steps to where it's great power moves, upright. You know, it has a more of a codification similar to how ballet does. There's certain, you know, every movement in ballet has a name. You know what I mean? A plie, arabesque, whatever it might be. When we were doing our thing as b-boys, didn't have a name. We were just going off. You know, whatever came in your head, it was very improvisational, like jazz would be. You know? And similar to jazz, as jazz became more codified, with Duke Ellington, and there's more orchestration to it. People like to say Paul Whiteman. It is what it is. It's part of the history. You can't deny that. But the codification of it, so it has a musical structure. You know what I mean? Versus just some people playing and going off, and it sounds beautiful, but it needed to be codified, and that's what happened with the B-boys as it got into the 80s and the 90s. You guys codified it into an art form. So when we were doing it was just like whatever came into your head. So if I'm rocking and I'm feeling the movement, one of the movements I used to do with a freeze was the baby, where you're rocking and you're bouncing. I actually got that from Clark Kent. And you're rocking and you're bouncing and you're spinning on the ground and you end up freezing in a fetal position. If you can kind of picture that. So, a lot of it was very improvisational. So doing the things and like I said, a lot of comedy routines. One of the things I used to do, rising out of the dead from the coffin. So you're rocking, you're breaking, and you spin down on the ground, and then you drop on your back like you're dead, and then you rise up sort of like, like Frankenstein. But this is all in beat with the music. You see what I mean? And then back in those days, they used to use the strobe light. A lot of DJs had the strobe light. And so if you've ever seen a strobe light, it makes your movements look very jerk mechanical, and it breaks them up in the light. So when you're dancing and you're going off with the strobe light, it looks even more mystical. You know what I mean? So you have the strobe light on and you're moving. If you ever see a strobe light, then the light comes off and your moves are more fluid. So, a lot of it was much more improvisational, and like some of the signature moves I had was dancing on my toes like a ballerina, a toe freeze, the fetal position, like I said, rising up out of the dead. And probably what I was most known for at that time was spinning, because I could spin like a top. When I first auditioned and tried for the Zulu Kingz, when I became a Zulu King, that was the thing that really cinched it and amazed it. I think I've told, if you've ever heard the story, when I was in an interview, I came to 123 and was dancing. They didn't know who I was. They're like, yo, who's this dude? I just started going off. Listen to Me was on, actually. And then Shaft in Africa. And I started going off. They're like, yo, when I looked up, I was with a friend of mine named Roy Glenn. And when I looked up, there were circles around. They're like, yo, who's this dude? And so I had been to the party the week before, and Squirpy, Wilbur Grover Reed Shaka, who is one of the original 5 Zulu masters, who were the founders of Zulu Kingz, okay? He said, come try out for the Zulu Kingz. We were just going up. We were just in the party going off, having a good time, just going off. And he said, come try out for the Zulu Kingz. And the next week I went, and I wasn't to try out. I just went to the party. And that's when they saw me, and I was doing these spins. And they're like, yo, that dude, he just keeps spinning, And so the following week I came and tried out for the Zulu Kingz, and I danced against Zambu. And like I said, I did the freeze with the baby, and they were like, yo, and they were just, I don't even know if the word mesmerized would be good, because that sounds kind of, pretentious. But they were definitely like, wow, because again, I'm from the Herc school. And so I'm rocking, and, after Herc, we're going to flash parties. That's why I met Fuji, my man Tony Fuji Leland, and Melly Mel. That's how, when I first met, we used to go to a club called the Garrison on Hunts Point. And it was like a little basement. And we used to they would start playing B-boy music at 2 a.m, and we would just go off. So that's how I met Mel, because Mel was a B-boy too, before he became an MC. My man Breakout, DJ Breakout, we were B-boys uptown, and we're going to these parties because that's where it was really going off. And so when I came to the Zulu, I'm like doing these spins and rocking, and my crew, like, that's how I met Ahmed, Crazy Bow-Legged Billy. Ahmed used to do this thing called the motorcycle. So again, it was a lot of routines, comical stuff, the Charlie Chaplin, my boy used to do that, Dancing Doug, come up and do the Charlie, like you're wilding with a cane, or, Doug was famous for doing the curly. Like, if you ever see the Three Stooges, yeah. And Curly used to be on his side, and Doug would do that in a dance routine. Yeah, so, us as B-boys, and especially, we had a lot of comical routines incorporated into the dance. So you're doing the spins, you're coming up. Me and my man Little Monk, who was my dance partner with the Zulu Kingz, we used to do this thing where we would be dancing and we'd spin around and drop to the ground and then act like we're playing cards. Or he would walk me around like a dog. Like I'm spinning, I'm doing the up rock, and I'll go down and spin, and I'd be on all fours, and he'd put like a leash on me, like pretend to put a leash on me, and he'd walk me around the circle. And then we'd pick somebody out, probably whoever we were dancing against or want to do a burn or whatever, and he would walk me around like a dog, and I would lift my leg like I was peeing on their leg. Something like that. So that would be a burning move. You know what I mean? So those are the kind of things we did back then. It was the dance.
Yo, Jay, let's play that clip of Little Keith real quick while he's talking.
So it's always in time with the music, and that dance aesthetic is always there.
Yeah, that's dope, man. So we're gonna show a clip of Little Keith. This is a little bit after Cholly Rock. This is around 1982 from Style Wars, to see kind of the precursor of what we see now.
Burning move. I don't know if you can hear me. The bag of chips was a move that a dude named Jerry Dunlap did on me when he actually got me. One of the few times I ever got burned, and this was early in my dancing era. And he had a bag of Fritos potato chips, and there used to be a move in burning called the mush, where you mush somebody in the face. And that's what he did with the bag. He ate the bag and made the chips and mushed me in the face with the bag of potato chips. So that was what that was. It was a burning
violation, bro. That's straight violation. It's like touching a dude. Like, I guess back then it was like,
it was much more about the fluidity of your form moves. So the burning moves were not like that. All right. Now, there you go.
That's it. Yeah. That's how it used to go. Like a lot of the form. It was like the precursor to what we see. Yeah, that's the spinning top you're talking about, right? The round the world, the spinning. That's what you did, right? The spinning. Coffee grinds.
There you are. There you are.
Yeah, I think he's going in and out, Pro.
Yeah. It's all good. All right, let's stop that clip real quick.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my man. That's Little Boy Keith and my Zulu partner Powwow. And so the spins you see, those are the kind of spins we used to do. Okay? Right. Those were the spins we would just do. Back spins, forwards, not back, but what you call back spins is spinning on your back. But we go backward spins. So he's spinning like that, and then we'd spin in the opposite direction. Now, with the sweep, and that's a move that he was taught by Powwow. And Powwow initially had taught me the back sweep with the leg. And we used to do the double sweep, where you could sweep both legs, one leg, another, and alternate leg sweeps simultaneously. See how he's doing that? Okay, we would do it, and then you do the back sweep, and then we could do the alternate sweeps. You sweep with one leg, then with the other, one leg, and then with the other, and alternate it. Okay, so those are moves that we used to do. Those are moves that we used to do. And the way you see us spinning, that's the way we spun. And I can spin like that, but continuously, like a top. And just stay on the ground and spin. And then I come up, and after I come up, I'll just stand in the freeze, I guess what you would call a b-boy stance, but I would just freeze, and then I would go back into the up rock nice and slow. So what it was the aesthetic of the spin and then coming out of it slowly. You know what I mean? Like, one of the key pieces to it is being able to switch tempos of dance, if that makes sense. Everything can't be fast all the time. It can't be power moves all the time. You know, they talk about the Olympics, right? And b-boying in the Olympics. And I was talking about, Cholly, if you were judging, what would be part of the criteria? And for me, it would still be the rhythm aesthetic with the power moves incorporated. See, if you just come and you're just doing power moves, that event's already in the Olympics. It's called gymnastics. That's not dancing. That's already there. You know what I mean? So it's how you incorporate those power moves with the flow moves, but in a rhythmic manner where there is still a dance aesthetic to it. If you see, my favorite dancer, aside from the Nicholas brothers, is Fred Astaire. And the reason I'm going to tell you, and some people say Gene Kelly, and I like Gene Kelly, but here's my difference and why I gravitate more towards.
All right, he cut out. Grover, so far, what do you think of some of the clips that we've been showing? So when we're waiting for Charlie to come back.
I was honestly, this is like one of those streams where I can sit back and enjoy what I'm seeing. enjoy Charlie.
He's more athletic, which is good. But you know, when you incorporate the athleticism and the power into the gracefulness, that looks beautiful.
Yeah.
That looks beautiful. And that is why I gravitate more toward the Nicholas brothers, Fred Astaire. Have you seen even in that clip you showed from Stormy Weather, or even if you show the one where they dance in not Sun Valley Serenade, Orchestra Wives, which is with the Glenn Miller Band, and they're dancing to Chattanooga Choo Choo. Okay? They still have power moves, but look at the fluidity and grace of their hands and how they move their arms as they're dancing. You know? And that was me as a B-boy. I would do all the floor things, and, you know, I could up rock, but my hands are moving, and, you know, it's the fluidity of it.
Right.
You know? And I think that's the beauty of B-boying and whatnot.
Charlie, let's get Grover's take real quick. Let's let Grover talk.
Donald O'Connor, he's more in the vein of a comical dancer. He can dance. He can dance. But like if you look at something like Singing in the Rain and Donald O'Connor dancing to make him laugh, if you ever seen that, that is hard to do. That is very hard to do. It takes a lot of athleticism. And again, he's more of a comical style dancer, which is good because now remember, B-boying, we put comical routines into it too. So, you know, Donald O'Connor, for that, he's a very powerful dancer. I don't think, and like I said, he was a comical dancer, so people didn't take him as seriously as they did a Fred Astaire, a Gene Kelly, a Nicholas Brothers, you know? But Donald O'Connor was just as talented as any of them. But because he focused more on the comical aspect of dance, I don't think they took him as seriously. And you know, Grover's here, he's talking about jazz. It's like, if you listen to, let's say, Liberace, who I won't associate with jazz, although he could play, okay? Or maybe an even better example, Georgie Jessel, who was a trained classical pianist, right? And was quite talented, but he chose to focus on comedy. And I'm trying to think of a jazz pianist or a jazz musician who is more associated with comedy, but was a serious musician. You know? Let me see which clip are you playing here. There you go. That's Donald O'Connor. And make him laugh. You don't know how hard that is for him to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a 4-minute, he's just going at it and holding the energy the whole time.
Okay.
One of my favorites right there. But
to be able to incorporate all of that into a rhythmic style, still be comical, but still be dancing, that is very challenging to do.
Good pull, Jay.
And you see see what I mean?
Yeah.
That is hard to do. And that is very challenging. He's using his entire body. He's using props. You know, we have B-boys who use props sometimes. You know what I mean? But just the ability to do that and stay within the rhythmic framework, that's hard to do. As silly as it looks, it is very difficult. You have to be very talented to do that. You know? And that's what B-boying in our day incorporated, some of all of that.
All right. Yo, Grover. So like I said before, like, because I know Charlie can't hear. Grover, what were you saying? Continue what were you saying?
Well, I mean, like, yeah, it just shows to be able for any dancer and hip hop dance to be able to infuse comedy, and it shows a high level of thinking and awareness in the moment, and that's the thing that
Definitely,
like folks
definitely,
really don't understand the
definitely. I wish I could hear him. You got to send me the tape of this. I
thinking
can't hear
awareness,
anything,
the
but
thinking
I'm
awareness.
just so we have to do this again. We definitely have to do this again.
And
Go,
so
Grover.
but I can't think of like somebody who's not power all the time, who was a great musician, who did start powerful, and then his whole style became subtle, as Miles Davis. And so Miles Davis' entire style was cool, it was subtle, it was delicate, it was hip, but it was still rough and rugged in a lot of ways. So the same man who gave you all blue, kind of blue, gave you Sketches of Spain. And that's what you're really talking about. And I think the biggest thing to understand is that this culture, this musical culture, this homegrown American musical culture that's been mostly populated by African Americans, indigenous folks of and indigenous people of the North Americas. If you look at like Africans, or I mean, if you look at like Puerto Ricans, or you look at Dominicans, or you look at the folks who really started and kicked it off, they were indigenous folks of North America, or of that way. I mean, it's really interesting to understand the complexities and of the music itself, and that's the biggest thing that I always tried to get over when I was having these epic battles about music with people, including a lot of my professors, and a lot of my instructors. Was like, hey, well, you play this stuff, but it's not really music. You should play jazz, or it's not. But I think the biggest shift came in the early '90s, where folks was like, nah. They started recognizing. What a great talent it was to be able to do it. And here's the biggest thing I say: the same circumstances that sprung up the ability to improvise and play jazz. Remember, they were taking classical instruments and improvising with it because there was a lack of education really on how to play the instruments. The same circumstances that when all the music programs were cut in the United States, and then folks took what they could to make music. And then the amazing dance that comes along with it is a symbol of the rebellious of the culture. Like he said, I'm gonna do what I feel like I'm doing. Do what I feel. And how powerful is it? I mean, I teach mentorship to young men mostly. And the most powerful thing for a young man is to put himself in a position to do what he feels, and it's not wrong. It's a very powerful thing. And that was a situation that, it's the largest culture. What we're talking about is the largest culture in the world, sells more records. It's the biggest import that this nation has. I've gone all over the world, and I don't see people all over the world trying to be John Coltrane or Miles Davis, and they're on my walls in my house right now. The greats, but I do see people trying to be the next hot cat who could spit. I see people, blew my mind. I spent the summer of '92 in Japan, and they were all breakdancing, man, and they were good. They were good, bro. I mean, it wasn't like some generic BS. And when they rapped, you knew it was dope. You just couldn't understand it, but you was like, damn, they got flavor. What's up? And they had the attitude with it too. Dude spit his verse and grabbed his nuts and walked away. I was like, what? What am I seeing? And so that's one thing. I love the way your partner got the same look Scott always has on his face. That's awesome.
Yeah. So yo, Jay, Jay, you got any questions from Grover as far as, because I know you were like before we went on, you were like, you had some questions about music and like how it's influencing movement, or actually even composition or structure. Like you had something to say.
Yeah, for sure. So what we know is the title is The Break, and what me and Pro have been talking about and analyzing within our culture right now as it is becoming a sport. I'm not sure if you're hip with where we are currently as a scene in hip hop in terms of the B-boys, the B-girls, the break scene, but everything's on a corporate kind of funded circumstance to where the music is being, we're not using the funk music that it started from. We're stepping far away from it. And I mean, there's a lot of pros to it. A lot of B-boys are kind of transitioning into becoming music producers, and it's just really, really driven beats that with minimal swings and characteristics to it, you got the main stuff. You got the horns, you got the drums and things like that. But all the classic breaks, you know, it's shaping the way people break and move.
I mean, and the other thing is, because of YouTube and the copyright claims, we're kind of forced, because we want to show this on YouTube, so we can't use a James Brown, we can't use, like, you know, a Miles Davis, we can't use a Gap Band, so we're forced to create this music, which not a lot of them are from musical backgrounds.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Jay. Sorry to cut you off.
No worries.
Well, you can use 15 seconds of it, but that's not really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So Grover, with your jazz background, we'd love, I guess a good place to start would be, you kind of gave us backstage a good start to jazz music. We'd love to hear your take on everything leading up to the break and into hip hop. Because if we look at, you know, the instrumentation, and it came from funk breaks and James Brown music, but we use turntables, right, to loop that section of the record, the break itself, and that's what actually named the dance that we do. So there's a lot of significance to it. But from your perspective, like, what was the first break you heard, and if you can give us kind of your take on that from your history of jazz leading up into the break, and as you do so. Sorry, as you do so, we'd love to get a 101 on music as well. Musical measure, melody, and any terminology that might help us.
All right, so well first, before I say anything, let's set up just how music exists. So regardless of what how you come across it, there's just certain facts or certain laws in music, like a bar, the time signature. So a 4/4 bar is something that counts in 4, and a time signature of 4. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. That's one bar. And the way you would count, if I would count to 4 bars, I'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, and then finally 4, 2, 3, 4. Now within that bar, there's an up and a down of each bar, meaning I just want you to think of something coming up and down as 1, 2, 3, 4, but on the up, and I'm gonna see if I can take away my background so you can see my hands, and if I drop out, I'll come right back. But I'm gonna just try to, there we go, kill my background, and so you can see my hands more. I usually have my green screen up, but I was lazy, and so so if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, you see every time my finger goes, but in the count, there's a up and a down. So 1 in, a 2 in, a 3 in, a 4 in, right? And that's how you guys dance. You dance on a 1 in, a 2 in, a 3 in, a 4 in. That's how everyone dances, right? But in funk and jazz and rock and roll, it all has to be, you culminate on the 1, meaning that you can do whatever you want, but everybody has to be in the same place on the 1, or you lose time. Yeah. So if I could play. You talk about the first break. The first break I really was aware of, where I knew it was something that was going to be used, was Nautilus by Bob James, right? But I knew
I think Cholly can hear.
Oh, I'm here now.
Yes.
Now the dialogue can start. Let's go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Let's make.
So if I broke down that break there, if you notice, regardless, and there's like 17 records made from that I can name off almost the top of my head, right? Including, like, my favorite record from it is what's the Daytona by Ghostface, right? The whatever you do, everybody, the drum player, because in music the drum player is going to do something, piano player is going to do something, the drum's going to talk to the piano and drums are going to have a whole dialogue. And that dialogue is sitting underneath everything. So you always say the drums, piano, and the bass player, that rhythm section, they're all snobs. They're having their own little conversation without you, right? Now, as a horn player, I'm playing on top, and every now and again when they hear what I'm saying, and this is literally how I think about it. When I say something they like, they're gonna accent me, right? They're gonna accent me. So I might
say on it. They can be like,
I might play a line. But da. They'll come with that, right? They'll hit on the end of that measure. But whatever happens, they can't step on the 1. So if a drum player everyone's on the 1, right? And so why do I say it like that? I say it like that because that's what James Brown did. And that's why he treated everyone like a drum. He treated everyone like a drum. The only reason why he did that was to get everybody on the one. Now, who else said put everything on the one? George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic. He said everything had to be on the one, right? Then you had George Duke with Dookie Stick. Everything was always on the one. You could do whatever you want, but it's on the one. But in dancing, imagine if you didn't go back to the one, you would, then that rhythm just gets loose. And then you don't have something to anchor yourself to, because when you're dancing the music, and understand how tribal and how of essence this is. You know, every ethnic group of this world, indigenous group, has drums. That's how everybody trained to fight. That's how everybody went to sleep and woke up with drums. So if everybody has drums, I mean, I say, you know, I did Filipino martial arts for over half of my life. We played drums. Wow. In Thailand with Muay Thai, we played drums. African martial arts, fast wrestling, I did that in Senegal. They play drums. Japanese martial arts, they play drums. Drums are in everything. So since drums are in everything, it only made sense that the people who came from Africa, the people who came from Asia via the Eskimo bridge, right? They would play drums. And that's why drums are so heavy inside of jazz music, inside of funk music, inside of hip hop music. It's about the drums, because the drums is the essence that all of us have in us, especially folks from indigenous places, man. And so, you know, and so where do all drum players go? When you play something, every rhythm you hit, eventually everyone has to meet somewhere. They don't meet somewhere, then you don't have anything. Because that's how you go from playing by yourself to playing with others. And even when you're dancing, if you're dancing by yourself solo, you're playing with others. You're playing with the music, and that music was played. You know, because ain't nothing worse than being off beat. Man, how you get teased when you're off beat? Man,
the dilemma of b-boys nowadays.
There you go. And I'm so happy I'm getting to hear finally. Here, let me tell you, you know, on my end, everything sounded like Jurassic Park, literally. And I couldn't hear anything. So,
right now, my wife is watching this happy. They feel the same way when you talk.
Nah, you're dropping gems, but now we can actually talk. So now, like, now that we talked about the music,
yes.
How, like, you know, when we showed little Keith, right? He did the moves, he did the spin, and that's why I was like, we call them, obviously. It's funny because now we call those either round the worlds or Zulu spins, right? Like we call those that spinning move. And you talked about being with Melly Mel. He was a b-boy. Grand Mixer DST, that's his man right there. That's Cholly's man. He was the scratcher in Rocket. That's Cholly's man right there. Grand Mixer DST. He's an original b-boy too.
Let me tell you a story about D.
Oh, here we go.
And the reason he's called DST is that he used to hang out in the Village in the Lower East Side on Delancey Street. Okay, if you're familiar with New York, Delancey Street, Lower East Side, a lot of shopping. Remember I told you about the tailor-made stuff? I go there. That's where I go.
Yeah.
And so the nickname of Delancey Street was D. So when Derek was coming uptown, and we were in gangs together, he was a baby spade like I was, and everything like that. And so it was D Street. And then it morphed into DST, then DXT, as he had his DJ group, the Infinity Machine, and all of them up in Mount Vernon. But that's where it comes from. And when D was first dancing, we were at a house party. This is like 1975 somewhere. And, you know, we got reputations already getting down. But D wouldn't dance. Now, what he will tell you is that he didn't want people stealing his moves. I think his ass was shy, but that's what he says. And so we're at a house party on Wilder Avenue. I remember where it was, you know, because back then, particularly uptown where we were in the Northeast Bronx, you know, we did our thing in house parties. The only real clubs was, like I told you, the Hevelo, Executive Playhouse, Cool Herc parties. And then we're going to Flash parties, places like the Dixie Club, Fox Street PAL. Flash used to play his music, his DJ equipment in a boxing ring.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, you know, but there weren't a lot of hip hop clubs at all. And we weren't allowed into the mainstream clubs because, you know, the sneakers and, you know, they didn't want the b-boying in there. Like when Grove was talking about the parallels of how Cajuns and Creoles viewed jazz. The Creoles saw themselves as the sophisticated, and jazz was the music of brothels. That was the whorehouse. And so they looked down on those blacks. They saw them as lower class, unintelligent, all those various things. And that was a very similar parallel for us with B-boys and what came to be known as hip-hop. The other blacks who wanted to go to the clubs and be more sophisticated or whatever they felt, they looked at us as, you know, thugs, urchins, thugs, which we kind of were. We were from the gang culture, you know, and I mean, even though I'm a smart kid, I was, you know, the gangs and everything. And they saw us as, you know, less than, for lack of a better way to put it. And in fact, the term hip hop, even though it was popularized according by Cowboy, with the thing, and later on Starsky, its original connotation was a pejorative for us as B-boys, because they called us floor sweepers, yo-yos, boy-yoings, and hippity hoppers like rabbits, like because we bounced up and down. And that's its original connotation. It was a pejorative. You know what I mean? As was the word jazz. Prior, it had a sexual connotation to it. You know what I mean? And then, of course, as it got commercialized, white people started to grasp it, all those various things. And once people saw the commercial, similar to hip hop, once people saw the commercial appeal, now these other people start, you know, latching on to it. You know, they find the thing that could be monetized in it. And the thing that could be monetized was rap.
Right.
So that became, and now, you know, people almost view hip hop and rap synonymously, or they identify hip hop as rap. And rap is just the commercial element of it.
All right, yo, Cholly. So this is a good question. This is a good segue. This is a perfect segue because I know Grover and Jay is going to be interested in this.
Yes.
So the whole thing is, you know, Herc played all the, you know, the soul and funk breaks. You know, Flash had the technique, right? Bam was like into the unique records, right? So how did he go from that to like craft work to create like Planet Rock? Were you there? Were you around that area when he like? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the electro funk.
I'm one of the original MCs of the Soul Sonic Force. Okay, before it actually was Soul Sonic, it was me. Mr. Biggs is the first one. He's the only one who's an original from day one. And then I started Biggs. Okay, but I was emceeing before that with my man, a brother named Glenn Ferguson, DJ Mastermind. All right, and back in those days, the MC, it was more about vocal quality because it was more like the radio style, like Frankie Crocker, Jerry Bledsoe, you know, that, yeah, baby doll. And I've always had this type of a voice since I was a 13, 14-year-old kid. I had a resonant voice.
Yo, Cholly, you got to give us a quick line. Because I started on the Soul Sonic Force in '95. That's when I started breaking.
Oh, that's all well into hip hop by then, you know. But in the beginning, it's like, yes, indeed, baby doll, you got the one and only Charlie R.O. in your CK, giving it to you all day, like something like to that, you know.
Yeah.
And it's radio style, and so I might say something like, yes, indeed, baby doll, if you want to know if I've got potential, well, I'll pull my pants and drop my drawers and show you my credentials. So it was something along that style, all right? But in any event, Bam's taste in music was always very eclectic. Yeah. And that's his real contribution to the Trinity. He expanded the playlist of what is today the canon of hip-hop. You know, originally, it's all the breakbeats, the b-boy music. And as Grover said, and it's funny, people think like jazz got incorporated later on. Jazz and rock have always been a part of hip hop, particularly in b-boy music, because it is heavy on percussion, the rhythm, the drum, as he said. You know what I mean? And the one, and funk, and jazz, Bob James, Mardi Gras, Kraftwerk, Passport, fusion jazz, Passport, Juju Man. That was our joint. Me and Powwow were in the Valley at a party, and we started burnings going off at a flash party to Juju Man, tearing shit up. You know what I mean? But jazz has always been a part of it because, as he said, the essential core element is the drum and the one. And then if you can improvise in your dancing, it's the one. And you can even do moves in a syncopated manner, which is accent on the offbeat. You see what I mean? So that's where you can switch up your style or your pace. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yes,
Okay.
it does. Yeah.
And I'm afraid my battery's gonna die out, and I'm so upset now that we get the kick. All right. So Bam's taste was always eclectic. Bam is the first guy to introduce African jazz, Afro-Cuban beats into hip hop. He was doing Phenomenon. Yeah, 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 na 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 na. Bam introduced that. Bam used to play commercials during the course of his music. Bam, when we battled Kool Herc, Bam played the Andy Griffith theme song, right? And then he played the Pink Panther. That's how he warned Herc that he was coming for him.
Oh shit.
And people are bugging out because up until now, Bam is like a myth outside of certain areas, outside of Soundview. We know who he is because we're there. We're the Zulu. We're part of it. But other people, all they knew is this kind of fat, goofy guy with an African name who plays crazy records. That's what they knew. And when he battled and played against Herc, we were in the PAL, Webster PAL, and Bam broke it out. And that's when Bam really got on the map, like everyone knowing who he was. You see? So Bam's eclecticism in music is what gravitated him towards things like Kraftwerk, go-go music, which was a Washington, D.C. thing. He introduced go-go music into New York, EU Freeze. You know, Bam introduced African music. He played a lot of rock music, stuff that wasn't associated with other parties.
Bam kind of had like a Sun Ra thing going on, huh?
Yeah.
Is there a parallel or influence?
Oh, well, yeah, because Bam was heavily influenced by African rhythms, heavily influenced by rock. He was playing, you know, hot na 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 steam. Hey, 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 goodbye.
Right.
That's a rock song. That's not something you would hear on a BLS. But Bam was playing that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so because of his eclecticism in music, that's how he gravitated towards things like Kraftwerk, things like Phenomenon, you know, things like Manila Thriller, Ego Tripping.
Oh no, I know that one.
Stop, tripping, stop, ego tripping. Things like Booby Night, Booby and the Sex, Level Maniacs. You know,
Yep.
Bam introduced all of those things. He introduced those songs. He was the first one to really play those in hip hop parties, and DJs would hear it and then they'd go grab it, you know? So Bam's eclecticism is really what gravitated him towards Kraftwerk, toward techno, and create the beat to what became Planet Rock. That's what
go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So if you have a limited battery, let's try and let's talk about the break, and I want to talk about music and its influence on movement from before you started into the first break you heard, maybe at a Kool Herc party. You know, you tell the story with that and what you know about the timeline to where it is today with manufactured beats on the global stage.
Well, you know, as Grover said, I caught him, drums make you move. Drums are a part of, and you talk about kinesiology. And I always think that from a physiological perspective, the drum beat, because it's so closely related to the heartbeat, is the thing that allows the human being to synchronize their body with the drum.
Yeah, when you talk about feel, right?
Huh?
That's the feel. We hear it. Everyone hears it. It's sound, it's sonic frequency, but the feel of it, right? The drums and the way it's played in the intervals and all that.
Listen, if you were deaf people still dance.
Yep.
Because they could feel the beat.
Cujo.
There you go. You know what I mean? So again, that is totally connected. So it is really impossible to not associate music with the general movements of kinesiology, muscle memory, all those different things. I mean, if you hear a song, you automatically start moving to it. Yeah. Even if you move off beat, you automatically start moving to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think just the drum and the physiology of the human body, they're connected. And that is what really codifies dance and kinesiology and movement. The fact that the drum beat is so closely related to the heart, and it automatically gets into you in biorhythms and things of that nature. All of that is associated. So that's what the connection is. And like I said, going to a Herc party, man, and you hear that bass and it's hitting you. I remember going to Herc party and Herc played 10% Double Exposure, which is not a B-boy song. That's a disco song, but it has a beat to it, like down, down, down. And as I told you, I have a musical background because I used to play music, and you're hearing those strings and that bass, and it's like don't. You can't help but start to move to it, you know. So yeah, absolutely. I had a total association with it just coming into it. It's like it grabs you, and you have to do that. And then if you have any rhythmic quality to you, plus the athleticism, you know, it makes you perfect for b-boying. And that's what gravitated people towards b-boying. Like I said, I can hustle. I can do the smooth for it. I'm nice with it. But b-boying allowed that other energy, that restless energy, which I always had. That's how I was in the gangs, even going to a school for gifted kids, running around with gangs, because I always had a restless energy. And b-boying allowed a venue for that restless energy to be expressed. So that's what it was for me.
Word.
It's environmental, right? I mean, growing up in the city, and again, I'm coming from the outsider's perspective. I am from an island. A lot of the information I have is from Freshest Kids, talking to Profo. I have met and spoke to Ken Swift a good amount.
Right.
But when you're talking about the main thing about the break and what we're, you know, the discussion that me and Profo started this is movement, gravity, and all that is defined by music and by the sound that we're doing. So the sonic frequency is one part of the environment that you're speaking of right now.
Yes.
The ground and the space around you. Your space was in a room, in a small confined space, right? So that you could see the relation and the connection of that and the circular movements that you guys are doing, like spinning. You're generating force in a small space. That's what's refining the movement through the music.
Well, here's what I will tell you. You're right. You are generating force in a small space, but by generating the force in a small space and releasing all that energy, you are actually enlarging the space within your own certain confine, if that makes sense. Like here you have this small space that you shouldn't be able to do all these movements in, but you can. If I was in a closet, I could still go off when I was dancing because I can expand the space through my movements. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but
it makes. I mean, you're talking law of relativity right now, space time, right? Your movement contracts the space and the time.
Yeah.
So
the constriction of the space actually influences and expands your creativity. If that makes sense.
That's a hot take right there.
You have a small space. Now you got to be more creative. How can I make it pop in this limited venue, this small space? Well, now I have to be more creative. Maybe my spin has to be tighter. For example, when I said I spin like a top, I could be in a closet and do that. I'll tell you a story, and this is a true story. When I first came, I left science. I got in some trouble there. I told you I was gangbanging. And I went to Christopher Columbus High School, and I met my man, Evans Carnegie. That's who told me to come down to 123. And what happened, Evans, that's my man. I love him to death. And he fancied himself as a B-boy. And I'm there, and I'm chill. They don't know, you know, I'm already rocking niggas out, you know. Excuse my language. But we were doing the class change, right? And so we're in the stairway, and my man JC, who was one of my crimies from Bronxdale, and that's where we met at. He had a little box, a boom box, and he had just begun on the boom box. And so we're on the steps, and Evans does some say, yo, and he does some little cute, little funny little move, you know. And I look at him, and on the stairway landing on the steps, I went off. Like from step to step, just spinning and on a step.
Down the stairway.
Down the step, up the step, and then on one step. And I'm dancing. And this stops cats who are going to class. They're like, oh, shit. And Evan, you can contact Evans on Facebook. He will corroborate this story. Evans Carnegie. And he said, you got to come meet my cousin Bambata. Because him and Bambata were close. Now, I already knew Bambata because Bam was a spade.
But you know, knowing him, like, I mean, becoming Crimey right hand and all that. That's how. But that is exactly how that happened. Going off on the step landing with Evans and
Wow.
Johnny Sanchez. He's like, yo, you're a bad fucking, you know, because you're a teenager, you like recognition, you know, and everything like that. Just a freedom, for lack of a better way to put it. But that's how I first came to their attention.
Nice. Yo, okay, so I'm going to transition just a little bit because, I mean, we're like at 1:15 right now. And I know, like, we're not trying to go over 2 hours, which we might still, but...
Yeah, well, I got my battery dying about...
Okay, real quick. So now we're going to fast forward. So we're talking about 75, right? 75, 78, 70, 77, 78, 79. You kind of get out of it, right? Around 79.
78.
So when you went... 78. So when you saw it at the Grills in Manhattan, right? This is around 82 now. So this is where Crazy Legs, Ken Swift, Bams, like with Michael Holden, you know what I mean, at that club. What'd you think of breaking after the Latinos picked it up and gave it a little bit more definition, right? Because, you know what I'm saying, like the technique, the foundation's there, but it's grown. The vocabulary's grown. It's a little bit sharper. What'd you think of it?
When I first saw it, I was actually at the Danceteria.
Oh, word.
Where
Okay.
Bam and us was playing with Islam and all our crew. This before we got to the Roxy. And, you know, we're at this thing and, you know, you got the white hipsters there. Because when it's merging with the art scene. And like that. And so all of a sudden you hear these people, these white people, they're going, rock, steady, rock, steady, rock. I'm like, who the hell is rock steady? And I see these dudes. And I'm watching them. And what I thought, I said, oh, because remember, B-Boy had died out. And the Latino kids picked it up. You know, and you had the what they call the up rock thing that they were doing, rocking. That's and that's not B-Boy. That's a sort of a bridge to it.
Yes, Brooklyn based.
For what we were doing,
to
rock steady. Okay. That's what the Puerto Ricans were doing at the time. But we always had Puerto Ricans dancing with us. We always did. Because we always all hung out together. You know what I mean? But in any event, Rocksteady's doing, and what I was like, oh shit, B-Boy is back. That's how I looked at it. But it was like they had taken it to another level, and part of it because of the introduction of the cardboard and the linoleum
technology
allowed them, when they were doing it in the street, to incorporate moves that we really didn't think about because you ain't spinning on your head on concrete. Or on your back. It was bad enough we went through 3 and 4 pairs of sneakers just doing you know what I mean? No, we didn't have no linoleum, no cardboard, none of that. We talking about picking glass out of our hands, stuff like that. That's real. You know, so the introduction of linoleum and cardboard and all that allowed for more innovation. So when I saw them doing it, I was like, wow, you know, okay. I liked it. I think as it has moved on, it's gotten more away from dance and more into the gymnastics of it. And that is the part that I would love to see it dial back some to where you're incorporating it in a manner that is graceful and fluid. So it is a dance that incorporates acrobatics as opposed to just being acrobatics and not really the gracefulness of a dancer. Let's put it like that.
Bro, should we pull the clip of
let's do that. We're gonna get you guys' takes real quick.
Hold on.
Let's before we battery holds out.
Before we go, Cholly, I gotta say that was a fucking dissertation, man. That was dope, bro. What you just said. Was dope. I just want you to know that. I sat back and I enjoyed every minute of it, brother.
Grover, we have to do this again where I can hear you and not have a dinosaur. That's what I was hearing at the end. Damn, man. So Profo, please.
And I ain't done. We ain't done,
actually stay late in my office so that way I can use it over the computer so we don't have this kind of an issue. But we must do this again, man.
Oh, yeah. Now we'll bring in some of the other guys. Maybe we'll get in Doug. Maybe we'll get in Fuji. If you can bring out, you know what I mean? Because this is a story untold, obviously, right?
You gotta have Grover back.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll go over too, for sure.
Chopping up to do, man.
Yeah. Especially on the music end of things.
Without a doubt. without a
Yeah,
doubt.
so we're just gonna watch this clip real quick. You let us know what you think, and just get your hot takes on it.
Yeah.
This is obviously the Olympic runner, the guy in running representing the USA right now. His name is Victor, originally from Orlando, Florida. So let's just check him out real quick.
Yeah.
Look at this. Look, he's keeping everything under himself.
Right.
Yeah, I love it.
He could do that in a closet. Everything he did. You see the space
Yeah,
that he used?
yeah, he's tight.
Look
He's
at that.
compact, and it's great. What I would love to see, right now, these moves and these power moves and things that he's doing, I would love to see if he could take a song such as "Listen to Me, Baby Huey," which has switches in tempo.
Yeah.
Can he incorporate? Because let's say if you were doing this in the beginning of Baby Huey, right?
Yeah, look off.
Power moves, but it would look ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be in the beat with the music. I would love to see. So me judging, I would love them to use original B-boy beats, right? And see them dance into that, and him incorporating all of this with the fluidity that it would take with a slower tempo and the tempo switches. That would be, for me, part of the judging criteria was how you are able in your musical selection to pick music that switches tempos so we can see the tempo switches in your moves, where you have to incorporate dance that is not power moves, and you have to incorporate it into it in a manner of fluidity that shows the aesthetic beauty of it. That's what I would say.
100%. And that's the big debate that's happening right now within the scene. Like pre-YouTube era, B-boys will stick by that right there, all the way.
Grover, what's your take real quick? What you just saw? Because you only seen me dance, right? So he's the Olympic hopeful. He's like probably the number one ranked in the U.S. right now.
And you could probably take it out, Profo.
Nah. No, I can't.
No,
Hey, listen.
Well, obviously,
Some of your work.
Obviously,
You, my man, Alien Ness, my brother Alien. Yeah. Because like I said, the power move, you have to be able to switch tempos and incorporate. That's you got to be able to do that.
Yeah, go ahead, Grover.
I would say, first of all, the first thing that jumps out to me is how athletic the little dude is, and how tight and athletic the little dude is. It's like, I look at him, I'm like, he could probably play 5 or 6 different sports that incorporated his body.
Yeah.
Another thing that I would tell you that amazes me, and this is just from someone who, like, remember, B-boys was breakers in general. They were only in New York when I was a kid, and you had to go to New York to learn. And then some kids came out here and they told us they learned in New York. They was lying their asses off, but they said they were from New York, right? And then it was like, yo, and this kid's from Orlando, bruh. And that's how powerful it is. In Thailand, when I was living in Thailand,
yeah,
performers who can get it. And so,
yeah.
Of course, I look at it as like, I look at it as like when I look at them and I see how that muscle performing, right? It's like a muscle. And I see him, he's performing and he's just showing all of his youth and his strength and his vigor. But the person who's going to win always is the person who has the most style and can do it. And that's what Cholly's talking about. So I look at it as like fighters, right? We look at fighters and nobody could touch Floyd Mayweather because not only did he could fight, because Pretty Boy knocked people out, but that defensive style, staying on point the whole time, and the subtleties is what made him win. So I definitely understand what he's saying. But me, as a second oldest cat here, I'm so glad I'm not the oldest cat on the panel right now, man. It feels great. I'm just saying. But I ask Pro, I'm always the oldest cat on the panel. They be looking at me, oh, gee, what do you think? I'd be like, damn, I was young last week. But
yeah.
But I look at it, I'm amazed, and I'm also amazed at where it's come to, right? But I'm gonna tell you that nothing blew my mind more than seeing like how people would change tempo, like Cholly said, or just do something totally different and then come back to it. And it always made me think of On the One. They was doing something, but bam, and they back to the one. And so, you know, if somebody came to this right now, they'd be like, what is he talking about the one if they didn't hear it earlier? But it always made me think that. So like he was definitely having a conversation with the drums when he was dancing, and the tempo, it was appropriate. But we see that with a lot of people who rhyme too, right? Where they can only rhyme one type of way and they can't change it up. And that's why Love Him or Hate Him, LL Cool J, he did I Need Love and had everybody's mind blown. I remember my first girlfriend broke my heart. I cried to that song.
Absolutely did. Right.
Yeah, man.
Right.
So that's one of the challenges and hot topics in the scene right now is the music. Again, we don't have the funk beats because of copyright issues. It seems like a solution would be to try and get funk people to within the scene maybe to recreate music for competition, because it's going there, right? We have the corporate presence, and that's why we can't play all the beats that I know. So when I go to a jam right now and I still compete, I mean, the music, it's simple. It's a lot more, it's dope. I can't even be mad at it, but that's what we're seeing in Victor. That's kind of the style that it's creating.
Yeah.
There's less of that, less character, less space for improv. There's still space. I mean, there's interval, you know, there's enough characteristics about it, but it's not as natural, and it doesn't really push that as you would see in like maybe an underground jam or something like that, a less publicized jam.
Right.
Well, the biggest problem with that is the music industry itself is who owns the copyright. So it's not the musicians, because the musicians, man, the average man. I was a hungry musician for a while. You can pay a musician some chicken and a soda, and they come up and play for you half of the time. But it's the corporations that own the copyright, who own the intellectual property that these gentlemen did. So like George Clinton from Parliament doesn't own nothing from Parliament, nothing from Funkadelic. So when he plays, he can perform it and get paid from performing it, but he doesn't get royalties from playing. So whenever you hear anything that's Parliament Funkadelic, somebody besides him is getting paid.
Who owns their catalog, Grover?
Who owns it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I forgot who owns Parliament Funkadelic, but he sold it. He sold some of it, they say, to a record label, but he thought it reverted back to him, and it didn't revert back to him when he thought he did. Wow. So that's why he went on that. But I mean, think about music that's changed. Everybody hears live, period. And a person who created it don't own it.
Right.
And that's the music industry, man. I mean, from I've done a ton of work for hire before I knew what work for hire was. And you know what work for hire means? Thank you. It's mine. That's what it means. Whatever you get paid now, you'll never get paid again. I thought I was just getting a bag. You know, when you're young, you're greedy. You just want that bag. Oh, you're going to give me 20 G to do what? For these 4 songs? And I'm doing it for free in my apartment. Anyway.
That's a break.
Yes. Yes, right? And then you come and you're like, oh, that song's actually done something. Well, cool. I did that, and you're nowhere on it because that producer who you went in there and did the drums for is actually owns that because you sold it to him through a work for hire contract. Right. So, you know, I see Robert Garcia. I don't know who Robert Garcia is, but he has some really good takes on that.
Yeah. Now he started World of Dance. He started one of the World of Dance. He's like one of the guys that started World of Dance. Okay. He sold it. That company sold it to NBC, but he's part of that production. So we got people watching.
Grover.
Yes, sir.
I know you play trombone, and my thing is about that. Did you ever come across or play with a brother named David Burnett?
I heard of Burnett. Does he have a brother?
David didn't have any brothers.
He plays?
But he did a lot of work with trombone with a lot of artists, particularly in hip hop.
No, who I played with, when I played jazz, I played, I mean, not to my horn, but you know, I was around like Afro-Cuban or mambo or salsa with like Pete Escobedo in the Bay Area. Then I played for you know, I mean, I went to Japan for 2 months with a jazz band with a bunch of the ex high school players, and then I played funk, and I played funk for a group called the Motivators in France. And so that's what I did.
Okay, because David did a lot of session work with a lot of hip hop stuff. Him and of course, if you know Pumpkin, who they call King of the Beats.
No,
his name's Errol Bedward. But if you ever talk to any hip hop, they call him Pumpkin. He was a drummer.
Yeah.
But David and I grew up. Well, so did Errol. But David and I grew up together. We used to play music together. We grew up together.
Okay.
He died last year of COVID, unfortunately.
Oh, that's dope. Yeah.
David, I remember when I was b-boying, first B, this back in 75, 74, 75, and I'm on the floor going off, and David is like, Charlie, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, yo, b-boying, man. He's like, that looks like rolling. I said, man, you watch. Da, 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 da. You know, we're doing our thing. And they thought I was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward 30 years later, you know, and we're all adults. And Dave, we'd be at old timers things or whatever in the neighborhood. And Dave said, Charlie, I will never forget when I thought you were losing your mind running around on the floor. Like, what the fuck are you doing? And we would always laugh about it. And like I said, David did a lot of session work with Bambaataa, a lot of other artists. He went to music and art. He was a classmate of Dawn Lewis, who played Jaleesa on A Different World.
Yeah.
They were close friends.
Yeah.
And,
Wow.
and a couple people that I know with Omar, Stephen Jordan. If you know the drummer Stephen Jordan.
No, I don't know.
No.
It's over my head.
Yeah, they're major jazz drummers. They're well known. And Steve, we all were friends as kids, and when they went to music and art together, I was, like I said, I was at science, but we all know each other. And Omar and all of them, yeah, do a lot of studio and session work. They're well known in that community. But yeah, I was wondering if you knew Dave, and that was my Dave Burnett b-boy story.
No. I mean, when I played and like I kind of like there was this local Bay Area artist that we really went around with.
Oh, cool.
Wayne Wallace was one of my actually took lessons from Wayne Wallace to get better. It's just Dick Leland, who was a local Bay Area guy who played with every big band in the Bay Area. This guy, you see a gig every night, you go just watch a band play every night, and this chubby white dude would be playing with everybody. I'm like, dude, you get all the work. And so it's just, you know, one of those things.
You got to keep grinding. You got to keep grinding. And you guys in the Bay Area, have you touched base with my man, Davey D?
Man, let me tell you how big of a fan I am of Davey D.
That's my dude right there.
Davey D. I used to, Davey D actually, when I first started mentoring folks, I used to make them listen to Davey D at night on Street Soldiers.
Yeah,
I used to make them listen to Street Soldiers at night because he had so many stories of it was older men telling young kids what was up. Because when I started mentoring, I was in my mid to late 20s, and I really didn't have the depth. I just knew I wanted to help, but I didn't have the depth or the knowledge I did, you know, I did now. So I was more like, hey, go hit this heavy bag and I'll talk to you, or do some martial arts. I'll talk to you, or do that. But I didn't know. Like now, I can actually tell people substance. I can actually tell people, hey, you know what? That sounds like you're going to the penitentiary, young man.
Hey, yo, wait 1 second. Yo, Grover, let's see if I could get Davey D on Tip Network. I got connections to him.
For I love to talk to him.
Yeah.
Listen, man, Davey's my dog. You tell him I was on your show.
There you go.
I love. That's my man. That's my man, without a doubt.
I would love to talk to Davey D, just for honestly, for the good it could do for people just to hear his message. He's the only dude I know on the radio that's been solid, decent, good message the whole time.
Oh,
no ifs, ands, or buts. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah, and I'll send him this right after it airs. I'm going to send him this.
Like I said,
you definitely tell him I send love. That's my man.
And I never called him or nothing. We used to sit in my car, and I used to be like, I was worried about this one cat. I knew he was going to jail or getting hurt. And he's doing well now too. He's doing well. He lives in Arizona. You know, I used to be like, just sit down and listen to this dude and cut this shit out.
And go.
Yeah, man.
Yo, Brett.
I might have all the 4 minutes on this battery.
I hear it. I mean, it's already a minute, an hour 30. We're kind of like shooting for this time anyway. So
Yeah.
like, any last words? Let's start with Charlie Rock, since your battery's gonna die out first. Any shout outs? Any last words? What you think of the show? Critiques, whatever you want.
Up to the Bay Area, my man David E. Cook. All much love, love him to death. And West Coast, you know, my man Africa Islam was out there. That's how he got connected with Ice-T. You know, me and Islam, I'm talking about carrying the speakers, you know, because I used to MC for him on things, because we all, you know, are tight. We're all part of the Zulu Nation family. So it's shout outs to my family in Universal Zulu Nation. Shout outs to Black Spades. Any of my friends who are listening, to my baby Angela, to my baby Asia Banks, and Angela Henderson, my boo in Wichita, Kansas. You know?
Still pimping, huh? Still pimping.
Yeah.
Look at you. Look at you. Look at you.
Man,
look at you.
No run. Can't run around like that anymore. I prefer, you know, you just want to settle back and be comfortable in your old age and age gracefully. You know what I mean? And shout out to all those who are carrying the culture. PROFOWON, brothers like Grover, Jason. All of you are still carrying this on, man. Jason said, Grover said something that was amazing. Like, we were just in a little space in New York, in the Bronx. Wasn't even out in the outer boroughs, the Bronx. And the Zulu Nation, which was the Zulu Kingz, me and my crew, there's only 11 of us original. And in one little housing project, and something that started, one little housing project, one area in the South Bronx, which is now the dominant global youth culture of the world.
100.
And it amazes me every time I think about that. And I'm humbled just by the fact that I was part of its inception. And didn't know it. I was just a young dude with a lot of crazy energy that wanted to be part of and fit in and was having fun. No idea that anything I was doing was going to have an impact and it global. Wasn't thinking like that. I was just having a good time going off dancing. And like Barry Gordy said, I just wanted to be popular and get some girls. Popular, have some fun, and get some girls.
There you go.
All the other stuff was gravy. And it just amazes me when I'm talking about it as a man, like an elder statesman, or people look at me as this pioneer, this, you know, I was just a young kid having a good time. And that's and I'm blessed to have been a part of it.
Much respect, Cholly. Hey, if I could squeeze one in, can you give us a quick story on your name?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Charlie Rock. My name is Anthony Gerard Horn. My biological mother is the person who gave me that name. My biological name, I told you I just met my family, Anthony Gerard Mood. That's my actual biological name. Wow. Got adopted as 5 days old. My mother had me when she was 14 years old. Okay? And so that's where Horn comes in. My father, my adoptive father wanted his own name for me, so he called me Cholly, Cholly. And the rock part came from my Black Spade brother, Anthony Holden Littleman, after a gangster back in the day named Charles Moore, who is the original Charlie Rock. But he spells his Charlie conventionally, Charlie. Okay, mine is, as you know, Cholly. So, you know, that's where it came from. And then the dancing part and the rock part stuck. Charlie has been the name my father gave me since I was a baby.
Very cool.
That's where. So it might seem like it could be an exotic story, but it's not.
No.
That's dope still.
That's everything. Yeah, the name, man. And before it dies out, another thing that we would really love for you to contribute as we are educating the culture. What would you like to see preserved? And as the community is this culture is transcending the immediate community. You mentioned Baby Huey at Jams. Is there another list of like tracks or anything?
What is to preserve is the original canon of B-boy songs, because that is the foundation of hip hop. The foundation,
which is what?
X factor of hip hop is the B-boy. If it was, and the guys who played that music, the Father, Kool Herc, Grandmaster Flash, people who are unsung, such as Breakout, DJ Smokey, you know, Bambaataa, you know, Disco King Mario, the first real hip hop impresario. He's the one who got us all those venues to go to be able to play, because they weren't clubs, you know. And the essence is the original canon of b-boy music, all of whom's foundation is in jazz and funk.
Yo,
All-
you know, yo, Charlie, I was trying to get Breakbeat Lou on here too, and he was
Oh,
too
man.
busy.
That would've
Dude, if it was all y'all,
That
next
would've-
time, yo, we gotta do it. We gotta do a next one. We gotta do a next one. We'll get Fuji on, we'll get whoever, we'll get Grover, and we'll get Breakbeat Lou.
Listen,
Yo, Jay.
yeah, and I'm gonna be somewhere where we know there won't be no technical difficulties. Because listen, Grover, an honor and a pleasure to meet you, Profo and Justin, and an honor to be asked and a pleasure to do this. You know what I mean? Like I said, when I talk with people, I have friends who always say, "Yo, Charlie, you shouldn't be doing this for free." I said, "Listen, I'm just reminiscing about my life and having a good time. Everything ain't about money. I have a good job. I have a master's degree. I direct several programs. I make money. I don't need to do it for that. I do this because it's my love of what we were doing and being able to tell the story honestly and truthfully and in an articulate manner."
Wow.
Well said, sir.
Oh.
Beautiful.
Well said, sir.
And whatnot. So
right.
that's what the situation is. You know, now I got to get off here because my girl she needs me to send her something and whatnot. But listen, whenever you're ready.
Oh, yeah.
And an honor again, Grover. A pleasure to meet you, brother. We got to chop it up.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll
Yes,
link
sir.
you guys on Facebook.
All righty. Take care.
All right, brother.
Got it. Easy.
That was
All right.
Charlie Rock,
One.
original Zulu Kingz, first generation. Grover,
Man,
we're gonna go to you, man. What you think of everything? Any last words and thoughts? And
yeah, I have one thing that came to my mind when I was listening to Charlie is that we have to avoid having happen to hip hop culture as what happened to jazz culture. Jazz culture, everybody forgot all of these stories. If you go to a young cat and say Congo Square, understand that jazz was the dominant culture in the United States and in the world, the dominant music in the world at one point. And if we go and we say Congo Square to half of the kids, if I tell you where's Congo Square, I mean, and what started there and who was there, and a lot of people just don't know. And so we have to avoid at all costs that happening to jazz, happening to hip hop. And I'm talking about hip hop, not, look, I ain't trying to throw shade on what's out now because I love what's out now. I'm never going to be one of those old cats talking bad about the youngsters because that's what they did to me when I was getting into hip hop, right? That's what some of the older cats did to me when I decided that they even like fusion jazz and not just swing, right? But we have to understand where we came from. We have to say, listen, there was 5 elements for real, and we can't just celebrate the music aspect of it. Shout out to my boy Cass, who still bombs, who still hits it up, who still does graffiti art, But what we seen here, what Charlie was talking about, he was talking about b-boying, and nobody talks about b-boying anymore. He was talking about b-boying, and we can't let that go. If we let that go, I'm telling you, we would have squandered as a generation, our generation, Pro.
Yeah,
not that young, good-looking cat over there. It's our fault. Look at him smiling, you vain bastard. If we let that go, we would have squandered the greatest natural resource of our generation, just like my parents squandered jazz. And this is why I would even hop on this, because I don't want us to squander. I don't want to squander because I'm unique. I'm caught in both worlds. You don't know a lot of people who got pictures of Miles Davis and KRS-One, and I autographed picture of Brother Ali and a Mac Dre bobblehead at his workstation. I'm in the middle, right? I'm in the middle. I'm good with it. I'm good with being in the middle. That's Generation X. I'm good being here. I'm comfortable. But we can't squander the situations. And that's the only thing I care about. That's the only thing I care about with this is don't squander it. Don't let people forget. Because sooner or later, I've seen it happen. And this is no shade against the Beastie Boys. But people was telling me Beastie Boys were the first ones to go platinum. When Run DMC went platinum the year before that.
100.
Right? Then they were saying the Beastie Boys had the first gold single. When Curtis Blow had the first gold single.
Yeah.
And so, you start seeing history changes according to popularity. We can't let that happen. Because just because Charlie Rock, because he's not a household name, it's a flipping tragedy that he's not. That you hear the knowledge he dropped. Did you hear did you hear the metaphysical ideas that he had about moving in a small spot?
I wanted to
Right.
dive into that right there. That in itself right there.
Man, you have to preserve that. And dudes like that are walking around this country and not even treated like the national treasure that they are, because they were at the start of the culture everyone does. Dudes shouldn't have to pay taxes. I mean, come on. So that's just my last thought of this. Is just to be honest, to look at it and say, I've seen it happen before. I've seen the setup, and the setup's happening now, but we can't let it happen. I'm glad that is, I'm glad that I see the young cats loving the dance aspect of it, because for a while I thought it was going to go away. There was a time from like in the early 90s and the late 80s, I was like, nobody wants to do it anymore. And then I remember, because I used to always go downtown and see people breaking. And I went downtown and nobody was breaking, and there was no dance offs, and people were into other stuff. And people was all trying to low ride like the Chronic, like we from LA, right? Like everybody was either from LA or the Mission Street. and then I realized that people are pushing it forward. But you know what? They're over in Japan, they're over in Asia, they're over in Germany, and they're in Orlando. And so it makes me feel better. But we can't.
It's bigger over there too than it is here in America.
We have to document it though. Like, man, I love podcasts, and the biggest thing I love about DJ Vlad is that he documented people from the beginning that nobody had did it before. It's important. Right. If I could give anybody advice, and you have access to people like that, document it. Let them just come and tell their story. Just sit back and let them talk and ask them questions.
Yeah,
I don't need to be here for that, because I'm going to watch it and enjoy it. I was a spectator more here than you've ever seen me before. I enjoyed myself. So thank you, gentlemen, for letting me come on. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. It means a lot, because like I said, like J Soul, Grover's on the hustle. He was on he's been on live streams the whole week on different YouTube channels, and that's how I got to know Grover. And it's funny because backstage we all share such a similar type mind, and it was crazy to me. I was like, what the hell? It's like we're almost the same people, but just different skins and stuff. And Grover was a good addition, you know what I mean? And now you got to meet one of the OGs like that no one talks about. I'm like, we are one of the first B-boys to give a shout out to Nemesis, but me and J Soul are the first ones I was the first one to interview him back in 2016. So it's like, but this time was over the phone. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Facebook over the phone on video, but this time we got to see his face, and we got to hear those stories firsthand, which was, I'm glad I was sharing with you gentlemen right now. You know what I mean?
I was surprised I didn't hear anything about James Brown, the JBs.
We got deeper.
We got deeper. So I gotta go back and I gotta listen to all the names. Man, again, I came up in the the Soul Sonic Force kind of.
I'll give you a name for something to listen to.
Yeah.
That really, if it really takes you, and you'll really understand how everything's connected, is listen to Fela Kuti and listen to the original Afrobeat. And then after you listen to Fela Kuti, because I've done this before, listen to Bambaataa, James Brown, Fela Kuti, and then listen to Earth, Wind, and Fire right after. And you'll see the progression. Because a lot of times you wonder what happened to the music. How did it get from here to here? But you don't look overseas and find out that that's what happened and went overseas for a second and came back.
Just so what was the first one?
Fela Kuti.
You said James Brown, Africa Bambaataa, and then Fela Kuti.
I went James Brown, Africa Bambaataa, Fela Kuti, and then I went to Earth, Wind, and Fire. And when I listened to it, I actually got a couple of playlists that's kind of structured like that for when I exercise and when I shadow box and stuff, and it's dope. And Fela Kuti, I'd ask you to listen to Zombie.
How do you spell that, Fela?
Fela, F-E-L-A Kuti, K-U-T-I.
Yeah, you can just say Fela Kuti. Pop up.
Fela Kuti. I say it like a gringo. Fela Kuti.
I believe he's from the same tribe as Duke.
A word.
Yeah.
But there you go.
Zombie, boy.
And while this is loading, what was the one right after Fela Kuti?
Then Earth, Wind, and Fire. You know who they are.
Yeah.
So this is only the 12-minute version.
You need. Is that the right one? Is this the right
Oh no,
one?
that's the right one. But they have a longer version. They have a shorter version.
Oh, and they got backstory to it too. Look at this.
Oh yeah, you could hear that.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't play too much. You get taken down.
Yep. Copyright.
Yeah, you got like
copyright strike
of music.
Put us on, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. But Fela Kuti is dope, bro. And it
Yeah.
starts off like that, but like, I mean, you're talking about athletic music that's just made for like. I mean, you have to understand too. This is one thing I forgot to say is that all of this music we talking about, this shit's about revolution, bro. It's about saying what you want to say, because remember, especially in the 60s, folks had already walked up to police and said, hey, you know, pig or this and that, and then, you know, got killed and got taken out and got taken down. So they had to do it in a different way. And that's why I think hip hop was looked so bad. My B-boy was looked so bad about breakdancing, because it was like, it looked like fighting. It looked like they wanted to do something. It was athletic. It was aggressive. It was in your face, man. Like I remember like my dad used to hate. My dad hated on hip hop until I got to a certain age, and I could explain it to him how it was all the same thing to me. Then he understood, because you could tell the way I talk when I talk about like, if I talk about like music, it's all just music to me. It's not that. As a matter of fact, I forgot to send you some tracks. I'll send you some tracks that I make.
Oh yeah, please, man.
Like just so
please.
You can hear it, because I'm all over the place with it. I don't just make any one type of music. But guys, this is a great conversation. But man, I need to hop off. I hear it. We're gonna sign out. But yo, Grover, can you tell the audience where they can find you? Yes, I am one half of the TIP Network, THPP Network. The other half is Scott T. You can find us at the THPP Network on YouTube, where we have over 200 podcasts of quality visual storytelling information. Live stream about once a week, even though we're taking a slight break. I won't be taking a break, but we're taking a slight break for about a week or two from live streaming while we get out some special stuff. And then, we are content creators, and we can, as you see, we can talk about anything.
Yes, sir.
We have a wide variety of life, but we choose to talk about the important things. So we're the TIP Network. You can find us at all social media outlets at TIP Network. That's Facebook. We even stream on Twitch, and so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and what's that? TikTok.
How do you spell you said TIP Network?
THPP.
THPP Network. Hold on, you're not subscribed? You got me up here?
Oh
no. You got me up here.
Like this?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, on all the handles?
At everywhere is TIP Network. Every social media outlet you can think of.
What's the story behind this? Is it an abbreviation for something, or?
Yeah, we used to call it the Happiness Podcast Project, because we were just making up a stupid name. But now we just like ask people if they can handle the tip.
Booty in your face. That's a call out.
Say it at the end of every one. Booty in your face. And we say the most intelligent, ratchet stuff at the same time. That's what we do.
Yeah. You gotta check it out.
That's the position, right?
As is life.
Cool.
Look at Scott. Grover made.
I know. Scott's on the chat now. Shout out to Scott. Yo, thanks a lot for your help. Yo, I was screenshotting what he was texting me, Jay. I was like, yo, this is Scott. I was like, yo, this is how you become a mod. Da, 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 da. So he's the other half of Tip Network is Scott. Give a shout out to Scott.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's great. It's great. Scott also has Org Unity, which he hasn't been too active on it, but he got a lot of props. I was on Blacklight Revelations last night streaming for what felt like 32 hours, but it was 2 hours because Rob could talk, man.
Yeah, man.
I love Rob. And Rob was like, I gotta get Scott on here because I want to talk that crypto with him. He does something called Tales from the Crypto. And what he said about Scott was he said he watched him with a very discretionary eye. And then he said, man, this dude really knows what he's talking about. Scott's self-taught. He does it all the time.
Yeah, man. Think about AJ. Think about everything you're doing. Scott taught it to himself: how to edit, how to make thumbnails, like all this StreamYard stuff.
If you look at our page, our channel's fire, dude.
Yeah.
Scott made that background that I had up there. All the background I have.
Yeah. I have to give you guys props, right?
Yeah, he's big though. Scott ain't shit. No, I'm playing.
I gotta give you props. You know, it wasn't Grover. You were the one to tell me to start doing this. It was you and Self-Made that told me like, yo, you gotta jump on this and do what you're passionate about. And on the back end, I'll tell you what's going on between me and Jay. There's some big things going on already. Like from the first podcast right away, we were like, what the hell? But that's for another day until it's official.
Cool. Well, I mean, I can hang out for a couple of seconds if you want to end it. You can tell me out there because
it's up to you, Jay, man. You know, like we're at 2 hours, bro.
No, I mean, I can hang out for a couple of seconds. You want to tell me anything off camera if you're
okay, yeah,
we'll be back.
Okay,
we'll be
on the backstage, yeah. We'll stay backstage and then I'll tell you what's up.
Yeah.
But let's sign out, Jay.
Okay.
What last words from you, Jay?
You want to do a quick recap on this?
Yeah. Grover, can you wait backstage? We're gonna just do our little monologue out.
Yeah, man. Drop me back.
Okay. So, yo, Jay, like Jay Soul, like I know, like this is like kind of like you're playing the audience role too, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
This is all kind of new to you, so give us your words, right, before we sign out.
I mean, I want to hang out and talk to Cholly Rock like in person, really, to really maximize my experience with this. But sitting back and listening was a lot better than the Freshest Kids and everything that I heard coming up again in the 90s, where that was the panel era, where every event would have all elements and the panel that would educate you on the panelist version of codifying things, so the names and stuff like that. Hearing him talk about the introduction of the cardboard, how that led to innovation, technology. That's what I'm all about, man. The science side of things.
Yep.
I am into codifying it, but I am a culturalist first with what I'm doing.
Right.
So hearing this, yeah, and having Grover on top of that kind of give his end, smart man. And everything he said, man, he has my attention for sure.
Yeah.
How he was able to touch and he's really good at articulating himself.
Right.
So yeah, that's an awesome connect for you. What I wanted to get. I mean, they didn't talk about nothing about James Brown, right? We spoke.
I know we went deeper, man. We went jazz and how like just the structure, because even James Brown, like when he was coming up, there was that jazz influence. You know what I'm saying? There was like that ragtime. There was that ragtime music influence when he was coming up too with gospel. You know what I mean? Like he was influenced by both. So so we went to the root. We even skipped James Brown. We went to what influenced James Brown. You know what I'm saying? So that was dope right there.
So they were rocking. They were social. They were hustling 2 full records that had the break section, but they were doing it all. Kind of what he said, right?
Yeah, doing it all.
When is that going to happen? When are we going to have the money and the funding to kind of get it to where, hey, let's take it right here and let's see how much more this can evolve. It's almost like taking steps forward to take a step back to take more forward.
Well, that's why we're doing this podcast, man. We're exposing people, and then we're gonna try to, we're gonna help shape the scene. But we have to go to the past first to fix our present, right? And that's the main thing. You know what I'm saying? All in all, let's what do you like? Any last words before we wrap up?
No, shout outs to BTR BREAKIN. That's a part of my team, and I'm the co-founder of that. They are sponsoring this movement, and shout outs to Zen World CBD out here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And yeah, let's keep it going, man.
Yeah, man. Before I wrap up, shout out to Tip Network, Grover and Scott. Thanks a lot for helping us. Thanks for a lot for Self-Made and all you guys to let me get, and of course Jay Soul to be like, yo, let's put this on document. Let's do this podcast. And we're upping the production, and there's a lot more. This is official episode 1.
Yes.
And this will transcribe well. That's all I'm gonna say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. Where can they find you, Jay?
BTR BREAKIN, High State Rocker. Those are my handles. Yeah. Those are the main places to find me.
Yep. And you can find me on Instagram at PROFO_FLGZ. On Facebook, Facebook.com/PROFOWONFLGZ. And then, of course, on YouTube, PROFOWN. This has been Gearheads, episode 1, officially episode 1, with Cholly Rock and Grover from the Tip Network. Peace. And see you guys later.
So.